Hi, Mara, or Colour Green. I've just finished reading your Word document. That was much better, thank you. I really like the way that you laid it out. It was really easy, nice paragraphs and subtitles. When it gets pasted into the questionnaire form that I use, all punctuation, or rather all paragraph punctuation, like the spacing between paragraphs and the subheadings, they all disappear. It becomes one big chunk. It's not ideal. So for me, this is a lovely and refreshing that it's just so easy for me to read and extract the important information. I see that you're from Belgium. My son's girlfriend is from Belgium. We met her in Colombia, or my son met her in Colombia. And so they've been together, I don't know now, for 6 months maybe. And she's a lovely person. She's a really nice girl. A good feminine woman, I would say. My son is 20, so they're only young. They're a young couple. So I haven't had that much experience with Belgians. I think I've met 2 in my life. And both of them, although 15 years apart, were in Central South America. So you guys seem to like to hang out there. Anyway, the 2 that I've met, very lovely, very lovely. And reading what I have here from you, I get a sense that you're lovely as well. So it must be something special about the Belgians, is there? Or have I just been lucky? I don't know. So right, we're ready to go. I'm familiar with everything that you've sent, and I'll just repeat. There's something that I said in an email to you. This question number 6 about the abuse you may or may not have been a victim of when you were young. This is something that I'm not going to cover, and the reason being that what comes through in the channeling experience has a high degree of accuracy, but it's not infallible. And so that particular piece of information, if my guide said yes and that was incorrect, or rather my guides say something and I misinterpret it, it'd be more likely what would happen. I'd misinterpret it as a yes, but that it's inaccurate, that's going to open up a whole can of worms and problems and stresses for you and others. And so just as a policy, this is something we've already established, we don't answer those type of questions. If somebody comes and says, yes, I was abused, and they know for sure, absolutely, and then they want some sort of resolution and meaning to come from it, then that's something we'll cover. But when it's actually, can you tell me if I was or not? We just don't go to that. We just don't go there. So I'm on my apologies. I hope you can understand the reasoning that we have behind that. Okay, so, but the good thing is you have 5 other questions, and in these sessions, it's usually 5 questions that we answer, so it's going to work out fine. Okay. Rightio, well, there's really not much more for us to discuss here. I will start and let's see what's there for you. Greetings, Mara. We would like to begin by thanking you for making the choice to receive a channeling from us so that we can provide to you some of the answers that are waiting to come through. It is no coincidence that you have come to us, because you have been guided so by your higher self, by your guides, because the next piece of information in the puzzle, as you begin to grow and have a process of realizations and expanding into what is possible for you, your guides will from time to time point you in a specific direction, because they are aware that this particular direction leads to a new revelation or a new insight or a new perspective, which furthers you along this journey you are undertaking. And this time you have come to us, and so we are going to assume that there is something that is coming through today, which is important for your guides, that you understand it, that you receive it. So, let us look at this first question you have regarding the EMP from the sun and how should you prepare. Regarding the likelihood of the EMP from the sun, this is a timeline which for us is still of a high probability, although over the last 3 years the probability has diminished, but it is still present. Now, the reason that we speak in terms of probabilities is because the future is always in a state of flux, and one can not predict the future other than to make extrapolations on the basis of what the state is currently and the energetic dynamic which is manifesting the state. What is the tendency of all of those in combination? And then from this, it can be extrapolated what is more likely and what is less likely to occur in the future. So, when we co-authored the book with Muzz the Channeler, at that time, we felt there was a high degree of likelihood that there would be an EMP from the sun. And we still feel there is a high likelihood of EMP from the sun. However, it is diminishing because the rate at which the humanity being, the group being, the combined consciousness of humanity is awakening is at a rate which is even faster than we had anticipated would occur. So this has shifted the dynamics and therefore shifted the probability somewhat. However, it is still pertinent that you prepare. Yet the preparation is not for the EMP, but instead for this immediate journey, which is going to precede any EMP event if it does arise. So, the Cabal of Darkness, the Unified Malevolence, which perhaps at this stage you have heard us and read us refer to many times, have a very specific agenda. For this final agenda of the Cabal of Darkness to be reached, there must be a series of events that take place in the interim, which set up the arrival at this final destination of global domination. So, this is going to require a transformation of a lot of the human paradigms as it has been accepted as the human way of life. And amongst these, there are going to be a collapse of the supply chain, a collapse of food production, a collapse of currency, a collapse of security, and so on. These are the essential foundational pillars which make a civilization function. And that is why they will very deliberately knock over these columns. So you will need to prepare for that more so than preparing for the EMP. So let us look more specifically at what you will need to, or what is recommended that you place some attention to in preparation. So the most immediate is the food and water access. It's important that you have some stores of non-perishable food items which have a nutritional content which is enough to satisfactorily sustain your health, your life, and that of those you're responsible for. So at this point, because you're in your own home, that would be you and your son. So we recommend that you have at a minimum 3 months of non-perishable, storable food that has a high nutritional value and can quite easily sustain you. Also, have access to a water source. So either you have water stored in your home, or you've come up with a plan where if there was a stoppage of the water supply coming through the general plumbing of your home, that you would have some alternative source that you could rely upon for an extended period. Let us say at this point 3 months. The more that you can prepare, then clearly the more prepared you are going to be. So if you are able to build stocks which would take you a year into the future, then this is better than 3 months. However, there are practical and financial implications and consequences of this type of planning. So we understand that perhaps in your position it may be easier or make more sense to prepare something which is in the 3 months range. This is really for you to decide. So, also you will want to have some rudimentary medical supply. So you want to have antiseptic, you want to have bandaging, you want to have tweezers, the general things that you would expect to have in a first aid kit, and also have some mild antibiotics to fight infection. We are just going to give you a summation, and when you actually go to prepare, you will find there is much information which will go to a great deal more depth than what we are explaining here. The next you want to prepare is your finances. So for the cabal of darkness to implement their global digital currency platform, then there must be no alternative to that. And as long as the fiat system, or the currency which is currently used, the metal coins and the paper notes, that exists as a very viable alternative to the central bank digital currency. Therefore, as long as that alternative is in place and commonly used, then there is going to be less uptake and adaptation of the digital currency platform. So this means they will very necessarily and deliberately crash the currency systems of the world, of Europe, of North America, of South America, of Asia. It will be a global-wide phenomenon, or at least this is what they will do their best to achieve. So if you have your wealth in paper currency, in cash, in money in the bank, then it is at great risk, because when there is a collapse, your money may very suddenly be worth only a few percentage points of what it is worth at the moment. And that loss will be a permanent loss. It will be unlikely to recover, because this defeats the purpose of crashing it in the first place. The idea is to crash it to such a degree that it can no longer ever be used again. So, therefore, if you have some value, some asset wealth which is stored in currency, it would be pertinent and wise at this time to transfer some of that into a different asset class, an asset class which generally, historically, has been proven to survive economic collapse, and in fact has been shown to thrive in economic collapse and gain much value and then never lose that value once the economy recovers. And the most obvious are precious metals: gold, silver, platinum, and so on. So we recommend that you place some of your wealth into those precious metals. And the precious metals must be in your possession. So rather than buying precious metals on paper, where it appears to be cheaper per unit of weight, there is still the susceptibility to fraud. Instead, to be sure, pay a little bit more for this metal, these precious metals, and have them in your possession. And also, for practical reasons, receive some of those precious metals in the form of small units so they can be used as a currency for trade. Because if you store all of your precious metals in blocks or ingots or bricks, then that is going to be of a significantly high value. And if you wish to buy just some groceries, that block size may be much, much, much more than you require to make that purchase. So if you instead had some of that precious metal in coin denominations, then you may find that one silver coin is sufficient to buy food for you and your child to cover an entire month. Because it is likely that if there is a currency collapse, that the value of precious metal will go to extreme highs, unprecedented levels of value, particularly because those that are awake will be looking for some alternative transactional basis so that they can avoid entering the central bank digital currency platform, realizing that it is going to be a form of enslavement or the fast track to future enslavement. Therefore, there will be a high premium placed on gold and silver because that is the out. It is the way that you can continue to exist and trade in a parallel economy. And then finally, we would suggest that you give some consideration to security. So the security could be by placing extra measures on your doors, on your windows, to give yourself a sense of comfort in knowing that if there was a time of crisis and there were looters who were desperate, had their own families to feed and yet had nothing because they had not prepared at all, we're going house to house through neighbourhoods to ransack and loot and gather all they need so they and those they're responsible for, who they did not prepare for, can be nourished. And that when they come to your home, they will find that it is not an easy thing to gain entry and access what is inside. And so they will simply just move on and go to another home where they are not faced with the same challenges of security. So this again is something we are covering just on a surface level. And security can mean having the actual physical barriers to entry, but also it can mean being equipped with different armaments and weapons which you could use in a worst case scenario to protect you and your child. So we do not wish to alarm you, but really we are just being sensible in the advice that we offer, such that if there is a worst case paradigm, that you are more equipped than others. So regarding question 2 and the imminent end of the job that you have, and what should you do after that. We would say, given the current geopolitical climate and also what is occurring in the macroeconomics on your planet, that this time now is an opportunity for preparation, which we are impressed you brought to us as your first question, because this is what we were referring to at the introduction to this session about your guides pointing you in a direction where you can access information which is pertinent to your expansion, to your journey, to where you are right now in the human experience. So, this second question that you have asked, again, gives an indication to us that you are picking up on the guidance of your team, which is your guides and your higher self. And they are suggesting to you one thing, and yet you're feeling something a little different. And you want verification if you should go with your feelings, or if this sort of niggling idea you have at the back of your mind that perhaps it's not the best thing. How do you reconcile? Which one do you listen to? So, we would say that because of this time, as we just alluded to, it is pertinent that you put yourself in a position where you are going to be able to prepare. So, this means that you be in a position where you can expend resources to gather other resources, meaning expend your money so you can buy the things that you need that are going to put you in a state of preparation. So, therefore, it is sensible that you have some source of income, because the opportunity to earn an income is under threat. It is possible that within the next 2 years that there is a major disruption to the economics from a global perspective. And this breakdown culminates as a total contraction of the economy, and the opportunity for work will be much less than it is now. And so, you may find that once that point is reached, that you have some sense of regret that you did not utilize the opportunity to gather resources when it existed, because you had the binary of sensation, one saying it is okay to have no source of income, and the other saying it is important to have an income. So there will be some regret that perhaps you chose the no income path, and yet in reflection it makes total sense that the way that the human civilization was heading, because it was, as you could perceive, on a descent, that it seemed to be going to increasingly stages of worse than it is now. Therefore, it was just a simple matter to extrapolate that if this trajectory continued, then it was likely there was going to be a collapse of major human systems, or at least major human systems were going to come under major strain. So, it is our recommendation that you continue to have an income of some kind, so that as you prepare, you are not diminishing your total wealth without at the same time re-establishing it, increasing it, maintaining at least a status quo. However, something that it is open to you is that you could transition into a different type of work. You could transition into something which is more aligned with your awakening. This is a possibility. To come to that place where you have a moment of recognition, that you realize what is your calling, what is your passion, what feels very aligned with this spiritual journey of expansion that you find yourself on, particularly since the awakening that began in 2021. So, to come to that place of realization where you realize this is something which is spiritually aligned and I could become very passionate about, that it would give me a sense of spiritual purpose. That is going to require some investigation for you to experiment and investigate what is available, what are the possibilities, what particular use of my spirituality could be harnessed as a revenue stream. This is a process of exploration, and you may find that when you first ponder this, you have no idea what that is. And yet, if you investigate, if you have an earnest sincerity to make this discovery, then your reality will, by default, show it to you. It will be revealed to you if you are sincere, if you ask the universe, if you pray to your God, that your passion, your purpose, your synchronicity with some particular part of your spirituality that can be harnessed as an income be shown to you, then this will happen, because that is the metaphysical laws of your experience. It must occur if you are earnest in the asking. And then it is up to you to have a state of perception where when the answer comes to you through your experience, you recognize that it is the answer. And then when you follow this path, you may find that as you advance along, you come to a realization that what you thought was the end goal you're heading towards is not quite right. It is not exactly, as you learn more and discover more about yourself, about your pursuit, that it isn't entirely what you thought it was going to be, that it isn't quite what makes your heart sing at the highest frequency. And instead, you've realized it is something slightly different, a little off the path. And so then you adjust, you recalibrate the direction that you head in. And you may find further down the path that you have a similar experience that you realize. And this process of realizing, realigning, continuing the path, realizing again, realigning, this is the calibration of you, your beingness, into the harmonic synchronicity with that particular vocation, which is most highly attuned with who you are as a human being, expanding into your spiritual self-understanding. This is exactly what happened with Muzz the channeler. Where he is now, what he is doing, is not exactly where he originally planned to head, because on the path there were many course corrections. And these course corrections were not major or dramatic, but they were enough so that over time, having course corrected many times, the final destination, while within the field of spiritual understanding and awareness, is somewhat different to the original objective. So the reason that we illustrate this to you is to say that you do not need to be very firm and in a state of total awareness and recognition of what your purpose is in alignment with your spiritual self now. All you need to do is have a general awareness of what you would like to do, and then start heading in that direction. Start researching, practicing that particular modality of spirituality, whatever it is. And you will find that you will become more sophisticated, more nuanced in your understanding. And therefore, you will be able to aim with greater accuracy. This process of discovering this particular resonant frequency means that in the early stages of the journey, you are unlikely to be earning a substantial income or an income that thoroughly supports you. So, this is yet another reason why it makes sense to have the income which you know you can rely upon, meaning that it is something that you know you can do. It is something that you know you will easily get employment for. And then while you are still receiving an income and still going through the process of preparation without totally exhausting your financial wherewithal, you can devote some of your time to pursuing this other more spiritual aspect of vocation. So, this word vocation is not a word which is commonly used in English, and we understand that English is not your first language. So, vocation, we are saying occupation, the way that you spend your time to make your income. So, the compromise could be that you find a work in the field which you are qualified, which you have had success, which you are easily employable, and make it not full-time hours. So perhaps do half-time hours or three-quarter-time hours. So rather than doing 40 hours a week, maybe do 25 hours a week. And then this extra window of time, use a large proportion of that to pursue this spiritual new way for you to grow and earn money. And of course, this can be done in the company of your child. So you will be spending more time with your child and also following a path which takes you in a whole new direction, while at the same time receiving an income that can support you and help you to prepare. Regarding your third question about the owls, about being told that you are an aspect of Metatron, that you were Imhotep, and that you are a healer, and your concern that it's possible, if you buy into this, that you will have given in to the egoic mind, and so in the long run it will not serve you. There are different perspectives of this which are relevant. So let us sort of have a look at the broad brush perspective. You are a being of manifestation, not a being of creation, meaning that you manifest into your perception something which already existed. But you did not create into existence something that did not exist. Because it is impossible to create existence from non-existence. Non-existence is exactly that. It does not exist. So it is impossible to create something into existence from non-existence. You are part of the One, and the One created the All. And so within the All is all potential. So when something comes into your life, or into your thoughts, into your imagination, into your perceptive realm where you hear somebody say it to you, then this implies by the laws of creation and manifestation that it already exists in some way, because if somebody had the imagining of it, then this is only possible if it already exists in some context, because it is impossible to imagine something which does not exist, because that is creating into existence from non-existence. And this is so because imaginings themselves are things. They are manifestations. So, this implies that what you have been told in the past, in some context, is actually correct. However, you wish to know the answers in a more practical way, because although it could be said that those things you heard are correct in a context, it is the separation between you as you know yourself in this lifetime and the context in which it is true. How demarcated are they? How separated are they? In every single moment, there are an infinite number of choices. And you can recall your past. And your past has been a series of choices in every moment for your entire life. Yet each time you make a choice, there is an infinite number of versions of you that chose in a different way. And they have branched off. And they have continued to branch off every single moment, branching off an infinite times more and infinite times more. So, when you look at that paradigm from the beginning of time, you can see that the branching across all of reality, across all of time, is infinite. It is so many possibilities to the extreme that eventually some of those paths are going to lead to versions of you living in very different realities, having very different experiences. And it is in these outer reaches, in the totality of the essence and substance of you, that what you have heard is more likely to be true. We are not speaking specifically about the different things that you heard, but rather we are illustrating that there is much variation within the concept that is you, because there are many, many versions of you. So, some will be relevant, some will not, depending on how branched it is from you. So, looking at the three things that you heard, that you are an aspect of Metatron, that you were Imhotep, and that you are a healer, we would say that what is most relevant and most close in the branching phenomenon to you as you know yourself now is the idea that you are a healer. And this is something which is literally part of your makeup now. It is not something which is only occurring in the experience of alternative versions of you, but it is also happening in you as well, because it is not exclusive to just one version of you. There are many versions of you which have healing ability, and you are one of them. So, this healing ability is an energy type which can be utilized in a number of different ways. One of the ways that it can be utilized is to literally heal the body. However, the quality of the energy of healing that we perceive you have is one which is more attuned to emotional healing. And this can be done through counseling, through just emoting, giving somebody the space where they can come into your energetic field. And just as a consequence of being in that energetic field, they will feel some salving to their own energetic state, to their own emotionality. And consequential to that, they may begin to discover that they have physical healings as well. But this is really because they have shifted their emotional state, which shifts their entire beingness, shifts the way that they think, shifts the way that they believe. And when all of these paradigms are coinciding, then there is a shift in the energetic field of the physicality. And so they can literally have a physical healing. So, to make this information useful to you, you could look at it from the perspective of, is this something which could be a pathway for you to investigate as you take on the journey of discovering in what way can you contribute and be of service to humanity, and to share the growing sense of love and connectiveness that you have within you in a way which is useful for those that receive it, to such an extent that they will happily trade their wealth for your ability. So, you could, as a process of your investigation, start seeing what qualifications that you could get, what courses you could do, what particular occupations there are which use this type of skill, those in the mainstream and those outside of the mainstream. What is there that can be done through a formal education process? Is it counselling? Is it psychology? Is it social work? Or what can be done outside of the mainstream, such as, could it be dream interpretation? Could it be tarot reading? Could it be clairvoyance, palm reading? These are the questions that you can start asking yourself and see how can you utilize your healing capacity to be of service and also receive a return for your skills and abilities, which could be an income to replace what you have been doing up until this point in your adult life. Because of the type of childhood that you had, and also, as you have said to us in your information, that you had a tendency to feel that you were being victimized, that life was doing things to you rather than for you, then at this moment in your journey, we would say that it is important that you step into this new, wiser, heightened understanding of self. That you instead have been assisted and helped by life. That the circumstances you have experienced, that the circumstances you have experienced have manifested in the way they have, because this is what was of most service to you, to further you along the journey of your awakening, of your understanding, of your self-realization. They were absolutely essential. And this is literally the truth. It is the truth for you and all entities within the all, because it is a fundamental, undeniable, inescapable law of all existence, that you experience the moment which is perfect for you to continue your journey of self-revelation. So if you are having an unpleasant experience, the pertinent question to ask is, why did I manifest this? What have I been thinking and feeling and focusing on that has brought this into my life? And then from this introspection, you can have revelation. And you can realize, it's because I have been having these thoughts, which have arisen from these beliefs, because I had these experiences when I was a child. And so when you have this understanding, you can shift the way that you have looked at your past. So you now redefine your historical experiences. And therefore, when you look at it a different way, then your beliefs shift. And when your beliefs shift, your thoughts change. And when your thoughts change, you can begin holding an entirely different emotional energy. And from that, manifest a different reality. So, you have already gone through this process somewhat, and let us break it down to you so that it is more obvious to you in case it is not yet. So, when you said that you had spent that time with your parents over the last 4 years, and it was tense, but you had a realization that you have not been as victimized as you once thought you had. And it was happening for you rather than to you. So, if you look at the moments from your early life where you felt victimized, where you felt that, for example, let's focus on your parents in particular, that they were doing things or behaving in ways which was unfair, which was victimizing you. And instead, look at it now from this new paradigm, that you weren't being victimized, that you were manifesting your reality in accordance with what is most perfect for you. And also, integrated into that is that your parents are not perfect beings. Your parents are not infallible. Your parents have their own struggles, are still going through their own realization, are still learning and adapting to the skills which are necessary to be a high-functioning human being. This is a journey that never ends. And so, when they did and said and behaved the ways that they did, it was less about you and more about them than perhaps you realized. And so, from this new perspective, you can look at your childhood experiences, which were foundational in shaping who you are, and look at it now from this new perspective, that it did not mean what I thought it meant. That it was not my parents being horrible to me, like I thought they had, but really it was just them just being ignorant and unskilled and not knowing what the heck they were doing. So behaving in a way which was not very nice for me, but them being so blasé and so ignorant of how to parent more appropriately, did not even realize that that's how it was making me feel. They were completely, in the most part, totally oblivious. And that is why they continued to behave in that way. So, therefore, I feel less of a victim. I realize now I have not been victimized by life as much as I thought I had. Therefore, I have different beliefs. My new beliefs are that life isn't victimizing me. Life is helping me. Life is assisting me. Life is instructing me. Life is steering me towards my self-realization. And if that is my belief, then my new thoughts are, when something occurs, I see it as this is an opportunity for me to grow. This is life helping me. This is God sending me exactly what I need to continue my journey of self-realization. And so then arising from that is the new feeling, not of being annoyed and hurt, but of being joyous and grateful and peaceful that your Creator, your experience, continues to bring to you the perfect moments. And now from this new paradigm, the way you have rebuilt yourself, you are having thoughts and emotional states which are conducive to manifesting what it is that you desire into your life. And it has been built upon the redefined experiences which are the garden bed for the new beliefs. So, the point of this very long segue is that as you are now in the process of discovering who you actually are, self-realization, to see what has been hidden underneath, then it would make more service and sense to you to be focused on discovering what lay beneath the personality you have known yourself as throughout your life. What is the truth of you? And so, any focus on completely different identities, such as Imhotep, such as aspect of Metatron, they do not serve you, although it may be a curiosity, and it is with some intrigue that you contemplate them. If you are very earnest about your spiritual journey, then they are a distraction and do not serve you in the way that the discovery of self would serve you. So, this discovery of self is something that we are going to get to more in the coming questions. The phenomenon of the owl on your pants. We would say this is something that you have manifested that has done so because it is synchronistic with a particular energy that your guides are trying to insight in you. They're trying to get you to head in the direction of a particular type of energy. And it could be said that this is, in the way that it is commonly used in the spiritual genre, is that it is your spirit animal. But this is not really a literal thing, but rather that the owl has a particular energetic quality that has a calling to you. And this is peace and wisdom. So peace as in tranquility, having an inner harmony. And wisdom, having the wherewithal to pause and consider your position, consider your moment in time, and take deliberate and well thought steps in the direction of what makes the most sense. So, much of what has been discussed so far in this session is very much in alignment with that, because this idea of preparing, this is the wisdom of the owl. And you feeling that you want to come to a place of sort of greater tranquility, greater harmony within self. That you realize that you don't want to place yourself back into a stressful work environment. That you must start doing more meditation. This is very much an energetic spectrum which is aligned to the concept of the owl. So, we see there is some other connection also between you and the owl. The owl is something which has reoccurred in your lifetime, or in your incarnations. So this is not the first time in your human incarnation cycle that the owl has had some significance to you. And we would say that it is a totem of a kind. It is an energetic quality that you have carried with you across incarnations. And it is something that eventually you begin to seek. The characteristics of the owl. So, in the way that it breaks down, which is most pertinent to who we perceive you as being, Mara, is peace, tranquility, and wisdom. It is important that you start being more fostering of these qualities, because you have chosen to be a mother without having a male partner. And so this idea of tranquility or steadfastness and wisdom is a male energy. And as you have chosen to take on the role of sole parent, then it is in the best interest of your son and your responsibility that you begin to foster within oneself some of the essential and powerful qualities which are more skewed towards the masculine. Now, this does not mean that women are not wise, but we hope that you can recognize it is a different type of wisdom. Women are very wise in the matters of relationships, of intercommunication, of an understanding and being aware of the emotionality and the feelings and the state of those around them. Whereas the masculine wisdom is about preparation, is about foresight, is about being able to make decisions in the moment based on what they can see is coming from the future. It is a different type of wisdom. And so it is important for you to come to some place where you are not only in the wisdom of the female, but also in the wisdom of the male. Particularly if you are going to continue as a single person, parenting in a sole basis. So, the most powerful way that you can do this is that you start being deliberate about your meditation and you make it part of your everyday life, or at least at a minimum that you do this 3 times per week. And through this process, energize or harmonize with the energy of the owl. See the owl as being your spirit animal and recognize that it represents this peace, tranquility, and wisdom. Its ability to be unperturbed in chaos. Its capacity to keep level-headed. And from this state of level-headedness, make sound and wise decisions about how to navigate the world rather than just reacting emotionally and heading in directions which are not well thought out and in retrospect can be seen as having been a hasty decision made for the wrong reasons. If you can stretch your decision-making paradigm so that now it has the space for this moment of consideration, even when there is external pressure which feels is hastening you, rushing you to be reactionary, then this is going to position you well for the future which is coming to all of humanity. Because there is going to be a period where things are more difficult than they currently are. This is, at this time, of a high degree of probability. The extrapolation from here to there is very firm. So, again, the future is in flux, but this is something which is likely to come to be. And your capacity for stoicism is going to be essential. And now let us look at your final question. Have you been taken by non-human intelligence? We would say that the appearance of non-human intelligence in your lifetime has been about what is normal, meaning that the presence of extraterrestrial beings in the human field is something which is not new. It has been around for a very long time. And so there are many, 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 many human beings that have had some degree of interaction with ETs. However, almost in all occurrences, it is done absolutely seamlessly. And so the human, which has been a participant, has done so in an unconscious state, and then following, the memory has been 100% expunged from the human. And so there is no recall ever across the entirety of their life. But occasionally, there are those that have a slightly different composition in terms of their mental energy, their spiritual state, and so on, which puts them just even so slightly outside of the paradigm of total and utter amnesia of the event. So, we would say that you have had experiences which are not outside of the norm. However, they have increased since the birth of your child, because your child, the father donor to fertilize the egg so that your son could begin to grow within your womb, that donor was of a greater interest to the NHIs than is typical. So he had been tracked throughout his life, but then so had also several generations of the men in his family, because the men in his family contain a very specific genetic anomaly or adaptation or slight difference, which gives them a heightened capacity for intuition, or a heightened capacity for extrasensory abilities, such as telepathy, such as remembering past lives. And it is because of this anomaly that the men in that particular family tree have been followed with somewhat more frequency than other human beings. And as your son has now been born into your life, then he is the next generation that is of greater interest. Now, this does not imply that all of the focus is on your son, that your son is the chosen one or something like this. But rather, there are tiers of interest which are recognized by those beings which have chosen to study humans from a scientific anthropological perspective. To understand humanity will, in a great degree, go a long way to understanding themselves. Because humanity now is at a state of its evolution which, when they themselves were at, did not have the degree of understanding they do now. And so they were not able to study themselves in the way that they can now. So, by studying humans, they're getting insights about themselves. And there are tiers of interest. And so it could be said that most humans, including yourself, are on this sort of generalized tier. And then there are tiers above this of increasing interest. And we would say that your son falls on the second or perhaps the third tier, where he is of slightly more interest than the general base level human encounter, because he contains the genetic potential for this ability, this capacity to tap into his latent abilities, which all humans possess, but most of them remain in a state of total latency and never are recognized or activated throughout an entire lifespan. But there are some from childhood who are already in a state of activation. And it is possible that this activation can increase across the lifetime of the individual. But what is more likely is that it goes back to sleep. And so once the child reaches the age of rationalization and the outer world begins to berate them and condemn them for being too fantastical in their ideas, they shut down that capacity, not recognizing that it is something very real and not just what their imagination is. So, the generations of men in your son's family tree on his father's side have pretty much in the whole gone through that latter falling back to sleep paradigm, where they were activated as children and then later fell back to sleep. So, if you wish to work with your son's capacity, as you have said, he is having memories, he remembers past lives, then you can continue to hold him in a state of belief that this is something which is real and not his imagination, not something to be ridiculed and scoffed, but rather it is a rare ability which can be grown, which can be developed to become something which is very potent, not just for himself, but also for what he will be able to do for others when he himself is an adult. So you could choose to nurture this ability in him. And also, because you are the mother, you have added also something interesting to the genetic code of your child. So you have these memories, very faint memories of having NHI experiences. This puts you outside of the usual paradigm because most people who have these experiences are successfully put into a 100% amnesic state where they never recall anything. Yet you have very faint, soft glimpses of those experiences, which means it puts you as an outlier. The technologies and methods they use, which are successful on virtually every other human they do this to, do not work with the same effect on you. So this means that you are an outlier. And so they are interested in what genetics you yourself have. What DNA manifestation do you have that give you this capacity to have slight recall? And also, what is the impact in combination with this pre-existing genetic tendency in the male bloodline of the father of your son, the biological donation father of your son? So, this means that there is going to be, or there has been, some experiences for you recently of being in the presence of the NHIs. Whether this will continue will really depend upon whether these NHIs feel it is worthwhile or that more investigation needs to be done. It is possible that from just the one visitation with you, that they now have all of the information they require. And as they are not planning to follow you on a developmental pathway, then there is really nothing more to be gathered from you. But for your son, there is now this process of development to see if he maintains these abilities. So it is likely that into the future he will continue to have these experiences. But what they wish for him and you to know is that these beings are utterly benevolent. They do what they do from a scientific standpoint, but also as a service to the greater whole by undoing to some degree what is being done to the spiritual evolution of humanity on this planet through the mechanisms of the Cabal of Darkness and the extraterrestrial groups they have aligned with, which use different modalities to diminish or cap or compress or snuff out the spiritual evolution of humanity. These benevolent beings that have visited you and have visited your son, they are bound by an ethical code that they will not interfere significantly with the natural evolution of the human species. And so what they do is very subtle. It is, you could say, a loophole where they are able to have interaction and give some contribution without falling outside or on the wrong side of the ethical rules which they have agreed upon in regarding to how they interact with the developing species. We hope, Mara, that you have found this to be interesting and that you gather something from it which is useful for you, useful for your child, and sets you in a position of trajectory for the future where you find yourself in a state of preparation, in a state of gratitude, in a state of alignment with your passions. And you can look about your home, on your child, at yourself with a sense of ease that everything is going to be okay. Thank you, and we love you.